Now, something I also want to talk about is a generational factor. Now, it's very common for people who are Gen X. So that's people who are born mainly in the 70s, early 80s, up to 84. So mainly it's 67 to 84, but it's primarily people born in the 70s. Most people born in the 70s have a parent who's a boomer. Boomers were born sort of between 41 and 61, right? But I'm thinking more of people born in the 40s and 50s who will have Pluto in Leo. Now, Pluto in a Leo is a pugnacious, poignant, pungent energy, right? Pluto in Leo was extremely controlling, assertive, headstrong, powerful, needs a great deal of creative expression, but sometimes this became extreme and they projected that in an authoritarian way. So if you were a child born in Gen X and you were Scorpio, Leo, and Taurus, or you had those rising signs, it's very likely you would have clashed with a parent with Pluto in Leo, that they would have been incredibly controlling or even narcissistic, and your relationship, although close, could have also been fraught, and there could have been an enormous amount of undercurrents of resentment running through. There may have been resentment for your parents to you, resentment for you to your parents. You both may crave the relationship, yet kind of rebel against the relationship. There's often very powerful themes of control. As I say, it's more poignant within the fixed signs and the fixed rising signs than it would possibly be for the others. But even if you're not one of those signs, you may have a fixed moon sign in which it can also affect you. So always bear in mind that your parents' Pluto placement will have a huge bearing on how your relationship with theirs is. And because the boomer generation mainly had Pluto in Leo, it was a particularly assertive, strident, uncompromising side of Leo that can lead parents to create a paradigm for their children, to be very prescriptive of what they want, to perhaps be quite controlling, and also use a lot of mind games in order to get what they want, and you may have struggled with that. Now, if you are Aquarius, it's likely you keep attracting your parent through relationships. So if you're Aquarius or Aquarius rising in your Gen X, you are always going through these difficult relationship dynamics where your partner is always feeling to be controlling, manipulative, an energy vampire, wanting more and more from you, never satisfied. You are continually tackling these particularly narcissistic themes through partners, and that is something you need to be aware of. Now, for those who have parents with Pluto in Virgo, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. The Pluto in Leo operates far more powerfully and strongly, and Pluto was in Leo for quite a long period, and it had a huge effect on that kind of boomer generation. Their mindsets were particularly set. They had very strong fixed ideas, usually very powerful personalities, and they would use that to create enormous sort of strides in the world. Like the boomers have shaped the world we're in. A lot of them are still working and still very much involved in affairs, both politically, socially, and in the family. And so they've had a huge effect through the strength of this personality. But often, depending on your personality, their strength of personality may have been obstructive to your development of personality or you finding yourself. So perhaps you did more to please them, accommodate them, or play their games rather than playing your games. So I think I've got a short little TikTok video I'm going to put out on that just to introduce this topic. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it resonates, particularly now with Jupiter new moon, Jupiter conjunct new moon in Cancer. Thanks, guys.